In this video, I'm going to talk about formatting a line graph. So very easy, very similar to the bar one with some changes. So we're going to start by actually building the visualization. We're going to again use that show me technique. I'm going to use profit. So for a line graph, we need one dimension and one measure, which are these two. Let's select profit and let's do order date. So we're using date so typically line graphs are based over time. So we've got order date here and profit. And I mentioned in the previous video the differences between a discrete representation of a line graph and a continuous one. Using this method, you can actually choose between the two. You've got these two right here. The first one is continuous, as you can see just from the text underneath. And the second one is the discrete representation. So if you don't remember, sort of like how I couldn't remember when I first started, pick one. If it's not quite what you want, try the other one. Over time, you start to get more familiar and start remembering the difference. But every now and then, I still forget. It happens. What we're going to use is we're going to use this continuous one. We've got this at a year granularity. So I'm going to reduce this. I've got this at a year granularity. We're going to increase it a little bit. So using this plus button, I can press this until I get one I like. So let's go all the way down to month. But if you want to go backwards, you can simply right click and remember that this is discrete up here and this is continuous. So we're going to go back and maybe we'll go quarter. Nice and simple. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at color. When you have a single line and there's no color element that has been introduced, you can simply change the color of the line by selecting color, and you can just choose any color you like. I'm feeling a bit orange today, so you can use that. Very simple. However, once you add a color element to split up the lines, for example, let's get ship status. I'm going to get ship status so that I can break this up into the different shipping status. I think there's 3. So early delivery, late delivery, and on schedule. When you do this and you have a color element, the way the color gets chosen is a little bit different now. When I click here, you'll notice that there's no color palette. Instead, we go into edit colors and we can choose which color we want to use. We can choose which palette. So if you want to change one individually, let's say I don't like having 2 blues, I can select. So you start by selecting this one, press a color, and that's basically it. So you got blue, green, and orange. And if I hit apply, you notice in the background that has now changed. You can also just apply a palette directly and just really quickly. You can, for example, use superficial stone. What a weird name, superficial. And then you can click assign palette, and that will automatically apply the colors to your selection. This is really useful for when you have, 10 or 20 or just heaps of different colors and you just want to do it quickly. Assign palette does the whole thing and you just go okay. So now you have your 3 colors, as you can see. Let's now talk about the next one, which is size. Size controls the thickness of your line. As I go smaller, it gets thinner, and as I go thicker, obviously gets thicker. Very simple function. Ideally, you want to keep this relatively thin because it just sometimes when lines are too thick, it's a bit too ugly. But that could also be a factor once you are, like if you ever need to print this visualization and you need to print it on A3 or shrink it down, the thickness will be a factor when it prints, right? In terms of can the printer actually print that fine. The next one is label. Label, we can do a few things. Let me just get rid of this ship status for the moment. And we're back to our single profit on by quarter. I'm going to go label, and what we're going to do is we're going to add, we have to add a label first. So I'm going to add sum of profit. I can drop that in there, and that will show all the profits. I could drop something else. For example, I can drop the order date. Let's see what happens here. You can see that that actually has an adverse effect, so I probably don't want that. But what we can do is if you want to show this quarter here, a little trick, if you hold control, you can take this quarter up here and duplicate it into here. And then you can add that actual one. However, you may not need to because it's already on the axis. So really up to you. Let's use profit for example. So let's take profit here, drop it into label. If I click on this and I click the three dots, I can do the advanced customization. It's just like using Microsoft Word, or I can edit the entire text label using this. I can change the size, bold, italic, underline. I can use different colors, pretty standard. The alignment we're not going to worry about now. We are going to look at this, marked to label. This is, I would say, I'm pretty sure this is unique to lines and area charts. Area charts we'll do next. When you do all, it just shows everything. Sometimes we don't want to show everything. Sometimes we just want to show the important values. For example, if I select min-max, it will only display the minimum and maximum value. And if you come down here to the bottom, you can ignore this scope part for the moment. If you go down here, you'll see label minimum, label maximum. You can actually choose between if you want both of them or just one. Let's say I only want to show maximum. I can get rid of that minimum one or vice versa. Going to the next one is line ends. Line ends is the start and end of your visualization. This is pretty good because you can kind of show like what level something was when it started and what it is at the very end. And it also means you can get rid of this axis because you're doubling up, right? It's a lot less to kind of absorb. If I go here to label and I click line ends, you'll see that they are now visible top and bottom, and that other one from the min-max has disappeared. This is one of the good things about Tableau. It's not going to show you anything that you don't need for that moment. Very efficient. The next one is selected. Oh, did I go through this? Start and end controls, so you can choose which one. Then you have selected. When you click selected, everything disappears. The idea is once you start publishing dashboards and people start consuming them, via Tableau Online, which we'll go through, and viewing the results, sometimes you don't want to display everything. You just want to display it when they click on something. So if they go, well, what value is this? They can actually click on that value and then the value comes up. This is a more minimalistic approach. I tend to use this one a lot because it means it lets them dive deep into the data and only have to read what they're interested in. The next one is highlighted. If you only have a single line, it looks like highlighted and selected are exactly the same, but that's not quite right. What we're going to do is we're going to have to add a color into this by splitting it up. So we go category, for example, we're going to drop it in color. That will split it up into 3. When I click here on the legend, you notice that they become highlighted. But actually, let me just make sure. Yeah, so we're set on highlighted now. When you click on this, notice that the labels only come up for the ones that have been highlighted. As you can see right there. That is the behavior for the highlighted. If you haven't got this split, it behaves exactly the same as selected because there is no highlighting function when you only have one. The very last one is the most recent, which really just shows the last data set, the last value in your data set, which is 36,912 in this particular case. That's your labels. Going into tooltip, this one is exactly the same as bars. So when you hover, you have a tooltip, and we can control that by clicking on tooltip and then modifying the text in here. So we can say for the quarter, the profit was $, and go OK. When I hover, you can see for the quarter, 2018 Q4, the profit was 24,848. That is your tooltip, and that is the end for the formatting of lines. So I hope you enjoyed, and see you at the next video. Thanks for watching the video. If you want to learn the entire Tableau platform, consider enrolling into my course. It's one of the highest ranking courses on Udemy, and enrolling today, you'll be joining the almost 200,000 students that have enjoyed my courses over the years. Thanks again for watching, and hope to see you in the course.